Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I'm doing another book review. I'm reviewing the book We Don't Need Roads, The Making of Back to the Future Trilogy by Caseen Gaines. Anyways, I saw this at the library. Immediately, I had to check it out. Love Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies of all time. In fact, you'll see it pretty soon on my top 100 favorite movies list. I haven't talked about it yet, the original. Actually have all three in my top 100. That's how much I really love the Back to the Future trilogy anyway. So, and I know a fair amount about the movie. I mean, I've, of course, grew up watching it, and I've watched all the special features on all the 3 discs that I have. Plus, there's like an extra disc that's all special features. And I watched the audio commentaries and the making ofs. So I got a pretty good idea, but still thought it'd be fun to read it as well and kind of get an overall view of how it was made and how the idea came about, and then hearing the behind the scenes, of course, is fun as well. And get all that in this book. Really cool book. I really actually enjoyed this book. I like the fact that it's only about 250 pages, so it's a pretty quick read, as you can see, not very thick. So I like that, and it was pretty easy to get through. I got through it pretty quickly, which is nice to have. Sometimes I have books that take a little bit longer. But you get pretty much all you need. It talks about all 3 movies, of course. I suppose a majority of it is on the first movie. And not only that, but it talks about a little bit of a biography of Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. They met in college, became friends. They both were wanting to be, into making films. And so then it's weird. Like, they just met and they talked about music that they liked, and movies that they liked. And they seemed to like the same kind of movies and music. And they're like, hey, how about we just start writing together? And here we get a great writing team that has written some incredible movies. And Robert Zemeckis had an incredible career as a director. And Bob Gale has written with him, I'm guessing, on most of his movies as well. Pretty cool partnership that they got there, just meeting by chance in college. I think it's kind of cool. Of course, they'd end up writing the script for all 3 Back to the Future movies, which the first one, of course, they had a hard time getting anybody to buy the movie or whatever, because Robert Zemeckis wasn't a known commodity yet, and he made a couple movies that didn't do particularly well, and they were trying to shop it to different places, and they all wanted something a little more edgier. They thought this movie wasn't edgy enough. And it's the 80s, I guess they thought, the movies were getting a little edgier. So they wanted more of an R-rated version, but Zemeckis and Gale didn't want to write an R-rated version of Back to the Future. Imagine what that would be like. More cursing, I guess, and maybe, who knows. But anyway, but then Disney was kind of interested in it, but then Disney thought it was too edgy for them because of the whole Marty McFly kissing his mom back in the 50s. They thought that was a little too much for their audience, so they passed. And then Robert Zemeckis luckily got to direct Romancing the Stone. Romancing the Stone did actually really well, made some pretty good money. His name all of a sudden became, a little bit better received, better reputation, and so then everybody wanted to check out this new movie, or that they've been shopping around, Back to the Future. Bob Gale kind of came up with the idea, looking through a yearbook of his dad's and seeing a picture of his dad and seeing stuff that his dad did in high school, and kind of wondered what would it be like if he met his dad in high school. Would they be friends? Would he be different than he is now? And that was a cool idea they had that he just kind of germinated, and then started writing the script and showed it to Zemeckis, and then they kind of started writing together and changed a lot. Like the time machine at first, I think, was a refrigerator, and then they found like the idea like, we need a time machine that can move, so why not make it a car? Which is a genius idea. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before. I think that was a really cool idea. It really changed everything. Yeah, and so they changed a lot through the script, of course, and got it written, started making it. Again, Zemeckis wasn't a known commodity. And then it goes through all the So I love the fact that I said all that's. I love the fact that it's a kind of a mini biography of Zemeckis and Gale, and kind of how they got together and started writing the movie. So that was really cool to hear a lot of that stuff. I didn't know all about that. And then we get to making the movie, and there's some interesting stories in here. I mean, obviously, one of the most interesting stories, which I've heard before, but is really fun to read, was about Eric Stoltz was first cast as Marty McFly, but Zemeckis didn't like what he was seeing because Eric Stoltz played it real serious, and Zemeckis wanted a more comedic approach to the role. And so, but Eric Stoltz kind of refused to make it more comedic. I guess he was, I don't know, almost a meta actor, I guess, what do you call it, a method actor, and he did it the way he wanted to do it. I guess he doesn't do comedies or something. And so Zemeckis had to go all the way to Steven Spielberg and show him footage and say, am I crazy or is this not working? And even Spielberg, who was producing the movie, said, yeah, it's not working with Stoltz. And so they wanted to get Michael J. Fox really bad, but Michael J. Fox was already in contract with Family Ties, the hit TV show, sitcom at the time, and he was being pretty much the star of the show. So the makers or producers, whatever, Family Ties did not want to give him out. They want to make sure he was going to, stick with the schedule for Family Ties. And so they were pretty desperate, so they worked a deal out where Michael J. Fox had to work on Family Ties during the morning and Back to the Future at night, and had to sleep in between gigs. So he didn't get much sleep. Luckily, he was pretty young at the time, but what a crazy schedule. Working on a sitcom in the morning and one of the biggest movies of all time. They didn't know at the time, but would be one big movie, Back to the Future. So that's a whole crazy story. I mean, Stoltz already shot a lot of the movie, and so they had to reshoot a lot of the movie. The other cast members were a little bit like, what? We have to reshoot that? But everybody got along with Michael J. Fox very well, so it worked out pretty good. And of course, honestly, Michael J. Fox was perfect for the role. He does such a great job. I can't imagine what it'd be like without Michael J. Fox in the lead. But that's such a cool story to go with that. And then just the fact that they had no idea if they had a hit on their hand, and the fact that it came out and it just was the biggest box office movie of the year, made tons and tons of money, just surprised everybody. And yeah, and they're like, okay, after that, it's like, Zemeckis, you can make anything you want. After whatever you want to do, we're going to give you the money, you can make whatever. And I don't think he necessarily wanted to make a trilogy, but after the first made so much money, they kind of decided to try, do a sequel. And so they kind of wrote out a sequel idea and then came out with the trilogy. Didn't do as well, but still did pretty good in the movie theaters. I think they're both really good, the second, third one. I think there's some flack that they get because they're different than the first one, but I think that's good. You need to be different. All three movies are distinctly different from each other. The storylines are not really the same at all. And I think that's what's great about them, is how different they are, and yet still have the great cast, great characters, great comedic effect, great adventure, to and all that. But yeah, some really cool other stories. Like, I didn't know the actress that was originally going to play Marty McFly's girlfriend, now I'm forgetting her name, Jennifer, was the actress who would go on to play Jan in The Office, who was Michael's boss, if you remember, in the first couple seasons, whatever, and then they would date in The Office. Well, she was first going to be Jennifer. When Eric Stoltz was Marty McFly, she was Jennifer, or she was going to be Jennifer, and I don't think she was cast, but she didn't shoot any scenes yet. But then she got let go, basically, because when they let go Eric Stoltz and they had to bring Marty McFly, well, Michael J. Fox is very short. So the actress, I don't remember her name, but she was too tall. She was taller than Michael J. Fox. So to me, that's I never heard that story before. I didn't know that the actress who would go on to play Jan, and she's really good in The Office. She could have been a major player in the Back to the Future, and could have, had this, gone to a bunch of Comic-Cons over the years, but she missed out on a huge role only because she was taller than Michael J. Fox. So man, that just shows you how brutal the movie business can be. You can be able to go just for the stupidest things like that. Anyway, so then they had to recast Claudia Wells, who was just an inch shorter than Michael J. Fox, and then that worked out. And then she couldn't do the sequel, so then they brought in Elizabeth Shue, I guess, who again must have been like an inch shorter. I'm sure it was hard to find. I mean, a girl shorter than Michael J. Fox, because he's a pretty short guy. So yeah, but it's interesting how, and she talks about it, and she kind of, they have interviews with her about the fact that she missed that role, which I was like, wow, that was so interesting. I have no idea that she was going to be in it. I thought that was really cool. One of the crazy stories, of course, is Crispin Glover, who there's a lot of, and it goes through Crispin Glover's viewpoint and like the Zemeckis and Bob Gale viewpoint of like what happened. He wasn't in the sequels. They said that he was asking for too much money, and he was also a big problem on set. He wouldn't really listen to direction, and so they really didn't like working with him anyways. And so they wrote the sequel with him being a major character, McFly, Marty McFly's dad. But because they were having trouble getting him signed on, they had to totally change the sequel and write him out, basically, in which they did. And yeah, so Crispin Glover says that he says that he wasn't asking for too much money or something like that. And I don't know, there seems to be, I don't know who's right, who's wrong kind of thing. But Crispin Glover wasn't in. So then they hired this actor who's good at impressions. I think his name is Weissman or something like that, like John Weissman. And so they hired him to do impersonation of Crispin Glover's character, his impersonation of him doing the character, in the movie. And so he agreed to that. And so then I didn't realize they put a bunch of prosthetics on him to make his face look more. I never noticed that in the movie. So I don't know if you don't see that in the movie, but they evidently put prosthetics to make him look more like Crispin Glover. And then, and it's funny, Weissman, one of the most interesting stories in here is his whole point of view. He talks a lot about what it was like for him. It sounded like he didn't not have a good time on the set, that Robert Zemeckis kept calling him Crispin, and the other actors on set would never call him by his real name. No one really cared about him. It seemed like everybody was kind of upset that Crispin wasn't coming back, so they all took it out on him. So I didn't know all that story too. I thought that was very fascinating. And then the fact that he got, after he made the movie, he got on the Crispin Glover called him on the phone, and he told Crispin like all the problems they had on the second movie, and Crispin Glover used that information to sue Back to the Future producers. So then they were upset with Weissman, so I think they asked him not to come back for the third movie. So the character really had nothing to do with the third movie, because they didn't bring back the guy to impersonate Crispin Glover on there. And there's a lot of, Weissman's point of view. And then again, he also, because the guy who wrote the book interviewed a lot of different people that were behind, making the movie. So he got a lot of good interviews and a lot of good, quotes from people about what happened during the making of, which I thought was, very fascinating. That's another just whole crazy story about Crispin Glover and him suing because they used his likeness and all that. Really, really interesting stuff as well, which I've known a little bit about that before, but you really get the whole story in here as well. And the other really interesting story I didn't know anything about is that one of the stunt doubles who stunt doubled for this female, there's a female stunt double for this one of Griff's gang. There's a girl, and the main actress' name was Darlene anyways, and she played this one of the gang members who's a girl. And so her stunt double, which I'm forgetting her name, her story's in here. A lot of good interviews with her too. But she actually, the first stunt double woman, backed out of the movie because they're doing that one big stunt where they fly through the air and they go through the building on the hoverboards. I guess that was a very dangerous stunt, and the first stunt double felt like it was not safe enough, so she backed out of the movie. So then they brought in another stunt double, and she was a little, weary about it, but she was kind of new, so she didn't want to step on any toes. And so she said she should have asked more questions, or she should have put her foot down. But she asked some questions. They had to don't ask questions, just, do your part and we'll do our part. And she's like, yeah, but your part, you have my life in your hands, so I'm kind of interested in make sure you do your part. Anyways, and she had all these, issues that she thought about. It wasn't, anyways, I won't get into any details, but it's very interesting. I didn't know about this, but the stunt went wrong and she almost died. Anyways, and she got hurt. She was in the hospital for a while and a lot of medical bills. She ended up having to sue to pay her medical bills. And she ended up becoming, and it's like, man, she almost died, but she actually bounced back and became a stunt woman again for other movies. So but man, that story was crazy. Like, I didn't know that there was a whole almost disaster. I mean, someone almost died on set. That would have been a huge disaster. And especially since she questioned, what they were doing. It was like, are you guys sure you know what you're doing? And they're like, yeah, yeah. And then that happens. And she's like, I told you, you guys, weren't doing it right. And even the first stunt woman's like, yeah, I told everybody that it wasn't safe. So yeah, that was a real interesting story. That was on the second movie. Anyways, I'm talking a lot about what's in the book, but yeah, lots of interesting stories and stuff like that. Even in just 250 pages, you get a lot of interesting stories and a lot of interviews and quotes from people, actors, the directors, everybody that was working on the movie. So overall, man, what an enjoyable read. Real quick, like, definitely a book I would love to get and put it on my bookshelf. Definitely, if you like the movie, you like the trilogy like I do, this is definitely a fun read. I definitely recommend getting this if you can get your hand on it from the library or want to buy it. I'm sure it's not too much money if you can find it. It looks like it's about $17. I haven't looked it up on Amazon or anything, but anyways, but yeah, definitely check it out. We Don't Need Roads, Making It Back to the Future Trilogy by Caseen Gaines. So yeah, so that's my book review. Please feel free to share what you think. Would you like to buy this book? Whatever you comment, I would appreciate. And besides that, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. Thank you for also my subscribers for supporting the channel. And just a Merry Christmas to all. Hope you have a good Christmas.